mathematicians. He took his PhD from ISIC Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, on People's Kerala Development Program. He has several publications to his credit, including 2 books on decentralized planning in Kerala. He has keen interest in research areas of governance and decentralized planning, public policy research, democracy and development, marginalization and social exclusion, gender and development, education and research methodology. Sir, on behalf of BCM College and St. Paul's College, I welcome you, sir. Also, I wish to extend a special welcome to all of you to this lecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alfonso. Now, for inaugural address, I invite Principal of BCM College, Dr. Tina Anna Thomas. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am.
Respected Principal of Kalamassery College, St. Paul's College of Kalamassery, HOD of the Department of English, all of the faculties who are participating in the seminar, my dear Alfonso, who is the HOD of the Department of Sociology in my college, and also the chief guest and the resource person for today, who is Mr. Rajesh, and all of the other participants of the seminar. It's been a pleasure to be invited by Alfonso for this collaborative research program, and because we have signed an MOU with with St. Paul's College of Kalamassery, and we hope to carry on with this initiative undertaken by both the departments of commerce and of economics respectively, and of sociology respectively. And indeed, it is an area that has not been explored in detail by our college so far, I think, qualitative research. And when I talk about qualitative research, I understand that there are several tools that can be used. And when I started reading up on the topic, that's when I realized that almost everything can be used as a tool for research. But then the quote, which is attributed to Einstein, comes to mind when he says that not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. So sometimes in the process of doing research, sometimes we think that, okay, an interview is going to be used. It can be used as a tool by me, says the research scholar, but then after some time, he might, in the process of conducting his research, he might find that maybe that interview that had been laboriously conducted in several different locations by him when he had been trying to interview very many number of people, but then some of it can't be used for his research at all. And maybe in the case of focus groups, some of the focus groups that he might have thought might not be relevant at all for his research will come in handy. Such is the area of qualitative research. And qualitative data analysis, I understand. So I hope that being an expert in the area, Mr. Rajesh certainly will direct us all to conducting research in the right way possible, looking at qualitative research as a guideline, and some of the expert opinions shall be embraced by all of you, I hope, from this webinar. So talking about cross-disciplinary academics, which is actually the intention of both the HODs of my college and also that of Kalamassery College. I'm sure that what they have in mind is collaboration, and they certainly will be hoping that this collaborative approach to research will increase research impact. So my wish for today is that may that happen. So let collaboration increase research impact, and let more and more of cross-disciplinary academics happen in both our colleges. And so with that, let me wish you all a good time of exchange of ideas and a good time of listening to our expert talker, Mr. Rajesh. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm wishing you all a happy Onam. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Now I invite our resource person and also my dear friend, Dr. Rajesh. Dr. Rajesh, over to you.
Justin, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
little more louder, please.
Yeah, that will come. No problem.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So today we are about to discuss. The different aspects of qualitative research. And since we have a limited time, I would like to give just an introduction about the qualitative research and different traditions. So after this, we can have a discussion, and if possible, we will have detailed sessions later on. The point is there are different traditions on social science research, but particularly in the recent scenario, we use two disciplines, different traditions. That is, one is one is quantitative research, and the other one is qualitative research. And quite often, these two are used as a contradictory approaches, not seen as a complementary, not seen as the part of a complementary research program. That dialectics is there. Always the conversation between the qualitative and quantitative researchers are going on even now. And both the traditions are trying to corroborate the fact that they are superior than the other. But it's not the reality. The reality is that social science research is really the blend of these two traditions, both qualitative and quantitative traditions. Unfortunately, the dialectics and dichotomies between these two are enhancing rather than decreasing. But what should be the factors why that should lead us while we select a research methodology? That's an important issue. So in sometimes several people says, I will use only secondary data, I will use only quantitative methods. The other way around, some people says we will choose only qualitative data, we will use only interviews, FGDs, like that. So is it possible like that? That's the basic question we should raise. And I think it's not justifiable to say that at the outset of a researcher should not say that I will use only qualitative research methods or quantitative research methods. So it's totally depend upon the epistemology or the process of construction of knowledge which a researcher is following. And it's also based on the research questions he or she is raising to answer. So that's the basic two parameters that should lead to he or her, which should be the right option for conducting research. It should be the right option or methodology for conducting research. So I would like to say that even our research guides say that you used to say that you use only qualitative or quantitative, not mix in your thesis. Don't mix together in your thesis. So that's a foolish argument often many of the research guides make. That's also faulty, because in a research study there may be 3 or 4 objectives or 5 objectives. for each objective, the methodology may vary. So, depending on the nature of objectives and the pathways through which the objectives can be attained, then that should be the criteria for deciding the methodology of a research. So that I would rather say that even within a single objective, the use of qualitative and quantitative techniques are possible. So it's totally depend upon what is your research question, what the research question you are raising out, and what's the matters you want to answer. And that should be the criteria for deciding the methodology of a research. Okay, that's the introduction. And while coming into the concepts of qualitative and quantitative research, what are the basic difference between these two? And that's also a debating subject. As we all know, and in the end of 16th century and the initial period of 17th century, in the outset of development of the discipline of sociology, the Augustus Comte and all, who started the discipline of sociology, had a thought that the people who are engaged in social science should also use the methodology of science in social science as well. So they truthfully believed that that is the only way to conduct the research. That means the total average of a population, by using the tools of statistics, understanding the average phenomena, average idea of a population, or average understanding of a population regarding a phenomena, by using the techniques of statistical tools, would be sufficient enough to understand a reality. That is, in other way around, it is called as positivism. That means the methodology which is used in science can also be used in social science. So that statistics is basically the calculation of aggregates. So the aggregates and averages. So the understanding of aggregates and averages out of that would be sufficient enough to understand the reality. So that was the notion at that time. So it is believed that the statistical data can reveal the social reality as well as in the case of science or mathematics. So then the issue started. People started questioning it. I think the questions largely raised from the part of interpretative tradition, that's starting from Max Weber. So people started to question that their argument was based on the subject of the study. So they were telling, in science, you are dealing with objects which is not having life or opinions. It's natural science method. That's it may be a wood, it may be a house, it may be a colony or something which is not having a life. It's not the for targeted on understanding the lived experience, but understanding the averages. So the question was that whether we should follow that same methodology in social science. Then they argued, whom are the subjects or objects of the study? That is human being. So you are studying in social science, you are basically the subject or object of the study is human being, and the society comprised of these aggregates of human being, or few or small societies comprised of a group of human beings. That's community or society in sociological language. So every individual who are engaged in the process of life is different. So the understanding of the reality or a phenomena by every individual is different. For instance, the definition of poverty. If you take the simple example of definition of poverty, one may say that I don't have even money to purchase rice. One may say that I don't have even money to purchase bike. The other may say that I don't have even money to purchase a car. Or I don't have a money to build a 2000 square feet house. So the definition of poverty varies from one to other. So if you take the averages from this, you will get an aggregate and understanding about the average. But you miss the understanding of reality by each individual, or understanding of the phenomena, or the explanation of a phenomena by different individuals. So that is the issue. So then the sociologist started questioning this basic positivity framework, and they told that the interpretation of meaning is also important in understanding a reality. Reality is not only the aggregates or averages. They didn't totally negate the all frame of quantitative analysis or quantitative inquiry. They just told that we should consider also this, the individual feeling about a reality and the meaning attributed by an individual to a reality. Unless and until the endeavor to understand a reality would not be real. So that was their argument. So they tried to develop a different perspective of qualitative research. They called this tradition as a tradition of qualitative research. That means understanding the meaning or reality from the perspective of an individual or society who are suffering that phenomena, or who are going through that phenomena, or who are facing that phenomena. So basically, the phenomena is there in the central point. So the phenomena of how the phenomena of poverty is understood or interpreted by different individuals in different perspectives. That is important to understand the reality of a phenomenon, the poverty, concept of poverty. So that was the argument. So while coming into that, as I told you, there are some basic difference between these two traditions, that is quantitative and qualitative tradition. One is totally an objective approach. The quantitative tradition is following an objective approach to explain the reality. That means objective approach means there is no role to the researcher in explaining the phenomena. Researcher is developing a questionnaire, researcher is administrating it in the field, and he is using some statistical tools like SPSS or Excel or something, or Strata or something, and explaining the aggregates and averages and the nature of reality coming out of that. The role of researcher is not involved in it, and as well the role of the individuals who are undergoing through the study are also not included in this. That means, for example, if you take the study of a colony, households in a colony, about their life situations, their views are not directly included in the questionnaire. Rather than that, the objective realities, whether they have 450 square feet house, whether they have availability of water, whether they have an electrified house, whether they have a good road, such quantitative indicators are used to understand the basic situation of a colony. So that is the process adopted largely in a quantitative research. And But the individuals who are living in the colony, their opinions, their perspectives, their definitions of feelings are not included in this pattern. But while coming into qualitative research, that is entirely different. In another way, it can be told as it is subjective. That means the how the individual perceive the facilities of the house. For example, more than the 450 square feet house, what are the environment, living environment? Are this house is sufficient to live? Is this house is sufficient to live? Can they live silently in this house with these facilities? Or what are the other factors that influence the happiness of an individual living in this house? All those points are coming. And how they view happiness, that's also may come. So all these factors are revealed in social qualitative research. In other way around, the approach is followed by the qualitative research is totally subjective. So the nature of the definition of happiness is coming from the perspective of individuals who are living in that colony, who are using that houses, etc. So that is the one thing which we used to follow. Other one is normally saturation of information. That is the methodology of qualitative research. So that it uses multiple ways or multiple methods to extract the reality rather than a single method. For example, in a quantitative study, you may administer a questionnaire, you may do some semi-structured interview or something like that. You will conduct an analysis, finish it. But while coming into qualitative perspective, the methods, empty number of methods may be used to extract the reality. Only the criteria is the saturation of information. I used to say an example. If you go to Attapadi and conduct a field work about the land alienation, and you come back in the bus, you come back in a bus, and in the bus during the travel, you are hearing a new narrative, which was not heard early from the field. And that person stepped out from the bus in the next stop. If you are a good researcher, you should also get down along with him and talk to him about the new narrative. So that means you should be able to extract all the versions of reality, different versions of reality, rather than a single version or single method. So the diversity of methods, use of diversity of methods is the core philosophy that is used in qualitative research. And the central point is that the subject of research or the individual who are undergoing through the research, their views are important. And in quantitative research, the meaning of the reality is explained on the basis of the objectified data collected by the researcher. That means a statistical table without any emotion, or an SPSS, a graph generated out of an SPSS program without any emotion, can explain the nature of the phenomena. That's the quantitative research. But while coming into the qualitative research tradition, it is believed that the interpretation is important. That means the meaning attributed by an individual to the reality or group of individuals to the reality is important. So the perspective are important. So 100 individuals would have 100 perspective about a particular phenomena. That 100 perspectives are important. So that is the other important. That means that means the objectified meaning and subjectified meaning. These two are the difference between qualitative and quantitative research tradition. And the other one is the methods you use in the qualitative research. As I told you, there are empty number of methods which can be used in fields. I'm just introducing that. Particularly interviews, focus group discussions, participant observations, document analysis, biographies, all these different methods used to understand the version of reality or interpretative realities made by the participants. So there are empty number of methods or diversity of methods which can be used in a qualitative study, while the single or two or three methods are maximum used in quantitative research. So these are the basic differences between these two. Then what are the traditions of qualitative research? There are different traditions for qualitative research. It started from the ethnographic studies, which is largely used in anthropology, sociology, all those kind of things, and the grounded theory approach, phenomenology, interpretivism, all these traditions are there. Basically, one is the narrative tradition, that is interpretive tradition. That means narrate the phenomena from the perspective of individuals who observes a society or who are living in a society. So it would be a deeper narration of a phenomena by two or three individuals or one or two individuals. In other way around, it can be called as a biographical sketch kind of thing. That means one or two individual detailedly narrate his or her experience regarding a society in their perspective. So that is the narrative tradition. And largely the autobiographical and biographical sketches are developed out of these traditions. So it is basically the explanation of an individual about a society. It's not a societal interpretation, but an individual's interpretation. But while we coming into phenomenology, that is a second tradition. That means in biographical sketch or an autobiographical sketch, a phenomena is interpreted from the perspective of an individual. But while we coming into the phenomenology, the phenomena is interpreted by a society, by individuals or group of individuals in a society. That means a society and members of large number of members in a society looking the phenomena in their perspective and explaining it. So there may be 50 or 100 individuals or 30 or 40 individuals, but the phenomena is important there. They are observing the phenomena and explaining it. For example, as I told you earlier, the happiness in a colony, the happiness in a tribal or Dalit colony, that is explained by the households or individuals who are living in that colony. So that the phenomena is happiness. So they are the 50 or 100 the house owners who are living in a colony is explaining, or individuals who are living in a colony is explaining their perspective of happiness from their perspective, their understanding, and they are trying to attribute meaning to the concept of happiness in their explanation. So that is the phenomenological understanding. And the difference is that the earlier was focusing on a phenomena, but that is from an individual perspective. But here the focus is also on a phenomena, but that's on it's a community or a social perspective. So the collectivism is there. But at the same time, there may be the diversity in views, but there may be some commonality between these two. So that is the second approach, which is focused in phenomenology. The third tradition of qualitative research is termed as grounded theory. Grounded theory is that simply a process that conduct a research without a rigorous framed theoretical frame. But the theory is built from the study itself, field itself. So there is no theoretical framework. That means there is no rigorous theoretical framework for conducting a study at the outset of study. But the theoretical framework is evolved from the field, and the theoretical frameworks is built when the study is finished. So that is the grounded theory approach. So there, what happens is that the understanding is built from the field. In other way around, it can be called as that is used in exploratory researches, where the areas is not yet more explored, or in the new areas which is not yet explored, or the theories are not substantially developed, or the theories which are not sufficient enough to explain the present scenario. The COVID pandemic is such a scenario now. No, we have several theories, but after the Spanish flu, we did not have an experience of this kind of a massive pandemic. So the existing theories would not be sufficient enough to explain the scenario. So we may have to follow a different pathway. So the grounded theory approach is important in that context. So that is the other tradition which is focused on qualitative research. So basically it is, then other one is the content analysis kind of thing, that is the discourse analysis kind of thing. Discourse analysis means if you have to understand a reality, you have to understand the discourses that has happened in that period on that particular phenomena. For example, if you take how the community responded to the pandemic in the situation of a Spanish flu. So what is the chances to understand that? We don't have people who lived in that period. We don't have direct respondents to get response from. So what to do? So the content studies, archival documents, paper reports, or the local kingdoms, rules, orders, or local health systems records, all those kinds of things are important. So we have to go through the documents which were there in that period and the discourses that have taken place. That may be the orations of leaders, that may be the paper reports, that may be the magazine reports of that time, or some archival documents. So all these can be taken as a part of discourses. So the discourse analysis is also important to understand that context. So that is also a major tradition of qualitative research. So I think the narrative tradition, the phenomenology, the grounded theory approach, the narrative or interpretative tradition, phenomenology, grounded theory approach, discourse analysis, these all are the traditions of qualitative research, which we can understand the reality from the perspective of individuals or society. So the point is that qualitative research uses different different traditions, and it uses different methods. So in that way, it is rich in traditions and methods, and it has evolved. Each of the tradition has evolved out of challenging the earlier tradition. So that is the innovation of qualitative research, innovative ability of qualitative research. It has challenged its own earlier traditions and developed a new tradition. So it one by one, it has elaborated its traditions and explained new concepts. That means, in other way around, the innovative ability is embedded within the qualitative framework itself. That means all time the questioning the frameworks, challenging the existing frameworks in the perspective of new frameworks, that is always taking place in qualitative research. That discourses are taking place in qualitative research. So there are different philosophical traditions or theoretical traditions which has endorsed or which has contributed in generating the concept of qualitative research. One is interpretative theory. As I told you earlier, that is starting from the Verstehen approach of Max Weber. He has extensively wrote on the concept of subjectivity, everything like that. And the other tradition is critical theory. The critical theory, particularly the German school, Frankfurt school, which has focused on the critical approach of social science, that is also focused on developing the theoretical frames of qualitative research. That means basically the concept was challenging the existing frameworks that was there that's generated from the Frankfurt school. The third tradition is the social constructivism. That is highly used in educational research. That is also the theoretical framework which has challenged which has believed that the knowledge is created or made out of a social process rather than an individual contribution. So it is believed that knowledge is an output of a society or product of a society or social discourse. So that was the basic concept of social constructivism, and that means society is constructing knowledge, not an individual. So that is the approach. And then the phenomenology approach, I already mentioned you the phenomenological theory and its background, interpretative tradition and all. So these all are the theoretical frames which has extensively depend on qualitative research and try to develop the concepts and tools of qualitative research. So these are the different frames. which is extensively used the theoretical frames. And finally, I will come to the methods of qualitative research. That may be the major interesting point which people may be interested to understand. One is, as I told you, in-depth interviews. In-depth interviews are the first largest tool we used in qualitative research. That means interpretative tradition largely use the interviews which can be used for qualitative research. That means an interview schedule or interview guide that is not totally structured, maybe semi-structured or unstructured, can be used for this purpose, and the interview may take place for hours. As I told you earlier, the point of ending the interview is the saturation of information that an individual can provide, or saturation of interpretation that an individual can provide for that. For example, if you talk to a farmer about a suicide, about the farmer's suicide, why the farmers are suiciding, committing suicide. So a farmer has his or her explanation for the phenomena of suicide. So all the explanation should come out through the interviews. That has to be documented. And that is the method of social science, the important method in qualitative research. And the second one is focus group discussion. Focus group discussion is a method which focus on to understand the feel of a group, or understanding of a group, or interpretation of a group or a particular phenomena. It is normally conducted between a group between 10 to 15, not a bigger group. That's an ideal group. And that group may respond to the phenomena from their own perspective. So that is and there are different laws for conducting focus group discussion. People should sit in a round. There should be a democracy even in sitting. And all the participants should be given equal opportunity to make their voices. All should be recorded. At the end of each point, the facilitator should consolidate the discussion and present to them and verify that the meanings they are attributed has already come in the consultation. So it should not be long, not more than 1.5 hours or 2 maximum, not more than that. All the opinions came out of the discussion should be presented back to the group. All these are there. And the third one is observation. That is, participant observation is there, non-participant observation is there. Participant observation maybe that process can be is largely used by the anthropologists. They used to stay within the group and maybe for years and to study the reality. So that is the thing. And non-participant means they are participating but not as a part of the group. They are attending the group, but not as the part of the group. They are observing the group. That is also not a very short time thing, but it can be done. The other one is document analysis. As I told you, the archival documents, paper reports, magazine reports, the minutes of the meetings. For example, if you study the dynamics of a Grama Sabha or Panchayat, you have to review the Gram Sabha minutes, Panchayat minutes, everything. So that is the way the document analysis can be conducted. And the discourse analysis, that is the other method which you use to, that means, as I told you, to understand the discourses of that time. For that, we used to go through the paper reports, archival documents, the magazine reports, debates happened at that time, videos, orations, all those kind of things. And finally, the autobiographies. That is other method. That means an individual is writing his or his biography or writing a biography of others from his perspective. So that is the other method of qualitative research, which is largely used in social science research. And these all are the normal, and then case studies. Case studies is a method and methodology. It's not only a method, it's also a methodology used in science, social science. That means case study is you are trying to understanding a phenomena by taking a case. For example, if you have to understand the phenomena of poverty in a coastal village, you are taking Puar or Virinam coastal village as a case and studying the phenomena of poverty from that case, so that you are mixing the different methods in case study to understand the reality of poverty. It may be in-depth interviews, it may be FGDs, it may be observations, it may be document analysis, it may be discourse analysis. All the methods can be blended together to understand the phenomena from a unit of a case. So that is a case study. So that is also done in qualitative research. I think my time is almost, I have already taken long time. So I will just to wrap it up. So that these are the methods of qualitative research. So basically, the quantitative, the epistemology of qualitative research is focusing on, that means the process of construction of knowledge of qualitative research is focusing on the meaning attributed by the individual or a society to a phenomenon. So that is the basic epistemological difference. While the quantitative techniques are focusing on the objective understanding of the reality through the responses collected from the field. So these are the basic differences. So that's a methodological issue or epistemological difference between these two. But I would say that the methodological monism or the fundamentalism is not good. It's not a good approach in promoting the social science research. We may require some kind of objective reality from the field. For example, if you go to a colony and understanding the housing situation there, the number or statistics is important to understand how many people do have houses and do not have houses. How many people do have electricity, do not have electricity. So that is one part of the reality. And that can also only be collected through a quantitative process. So that is important. But the sufferings of the people as a part of their life in a colony cannot be extracted through a questionnaire. For example, the issue of drunkardness of a father of a family, or the issue of a health issue of an individual, or a mental health issue of a family member cannot be gathered through a quantitative questionnaire. And the cultural context of a colony cannot be gathered through a quantitative questionnaire. That can only be collected through a qualitative approach. So I would rather argue that rather than a single approach, a mixed methodology approach would be relevant in conducting social science research in many cases. But at the same time, the qualitative research is also important in some particular cases. You can only extract the reality through qualitative research. In some cases, in that cases, you should use qualitative research only. You have to restrict your study, the framework, everything in qualitative research. So that is the different case. So the objective of the study should be the basic criteria for opting the tool for a research, rather than a research fundamentalism or fundamentalistic approach in terms of qualitative or quantitative research. Thank you. Justin?
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Dr. Richa, are you there? Okay. Now the floor is open for discussion. Now the floor is open for post in the chat box so that we can select it and Rajesh can answer all that. If you have any question, you can post your question in the
Just
chat box.
please read the
Okay,
points coming in the chat box.
okay, fine. I can. There is a one question from Ganga Jayaprasad saying that what is the difference between method and methodology? And she is also specifying, can you give an answer in 1 or 2 sentences? Can you just differentiate between the two?
Method is the only the process of conducting a study, while methodology includes the theoretical frame or theoretical lens through which you are looking the research or framing the research.
Okay. Thank you, Rajesh. There is one more question. The question is, can you speak about social constructivism used in education studies? What is social constructivism?
I think as far as my understanding, normally the traditional educational approaches followed a path thing that students are hollow pots. That means teacher is a knowledgeable person or guru is a knowledgeable person. He or she is delivering the knowledge or information to the students. So that was the approach. But social constructivism challenged it. It told that students are not a hollow pots. They are also constructing knowledge till the inception of their life. So they are also knowledgeable. So that knowledge construction is also important, and there should be sufficient room for developing the construction of knowledge process by the students and society. And that is every knowledge is shared and developed by the society, not by the individual. So that was the idea.
Okay, Rajesh, there is a question from Tanya Cherian. She's saying that which method is good, especially in the case of child abuse, quantitative or qualitative?
I would say that for counting the child abuse, you have to take quantitative data, but at the same time, for understanding the undercurrents of child abuse, you should use qualitative data.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh. There is one more question from Dr. Sajida J. Kurip from St. Teresa's College. She is the HOD of the Sociology Department. The question is that as qualitative research is subjective, don't you think that the percentage of bias would be high when compared to the quantitative studies?
No, I don't think that. I think so, because that is why I told you the saturation of information. That means you should not, the number of the interviews and everything should be fixed based on the saturation of, you can't say that I will take only interviews of 10 people, 15 people or like that. It is, the law is that, the rule is that, thumb rule is that you should continue your research or field work till the point that you are not able to extract any new point of reality. So that is the approach which qualitative research always follow. So I think that the all versions of reality needs to be covered through qualitative process. That is the basic approach. And the second one is that there is an intersubjectivity perspective. I missed that in my talk. Particularly that is highlighted by Pierre Bourdieu kind of sociologists. They are telling that even if there are 100 versions of reality emanating out from out from the field relating to a phenomena, there would be some line of commonality between these. That is, he is calling intersubjectivity. So you will be able to make an intersubjective perspective from the subjective perspective. So that is, in other way around, that is the average in social quantitative research. So that will that's also possible. So they talked about the pattern development and categorization of themes based on that. I didn't go through the analysis part. If needed, we can deal that.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh sir. There is one more question from Tison Joss saying that what is the difference between theoretical and the conceptual framework? How do we able to distinguish that? Rajesh, can you?
Yeah.
What is the difference between the theoretical and the conceptual framework? That is a question. And there is also a sub question saying that can we build a conceptual framework only on the basis of qualitative data?
The issue is that the theoretical frame, the theory itself is a relational statement of concepts. It's not a single concept. That is logical connected statements between by linking the concepts is theory. That is theory. But so that theory is a relational logical statement. But while we that's the theoretical framework. That means you are adopting a framework which is used by linking different concepts together in a logical frame. But while you come to a conceptual framework, you are taking a concept from that and breaking it and then linking it together. So that's then operation. That's the part of an operationalization of a study. For example, poverty. Poverty is a concept, and for analyzing the concept of a poverty, you are making a frame for that by breaking the concept of poverty into different parts and linking it together. So that is the difference, I think.
Okay, Rajesh, I think now we can go for, there is one more question. One. Okay, I have a question, Rajesh. We could see that many people are using more quantitative approach rather than the qualitative approach. Of course, we need to have a mixture of approach, but my question is that do we, I mean, how far quantitative approach able to understand the gender related issues? Your mic is off, Rajesh. Unmute your mic. Rajesh sir.
Yeah.
Your mic.
I can.
Okay.
Justin, actually, there is a logic behind that. The questions addressing quantity and the questions related to the controlling factors. For example, addressing quantity means how many, how much kind of thing. Then what, when, who, those kind of thing. That are the controlling factors. No. In these cases, you can use quantitative tools. That is, quantitative tools will be substantiated enough to prove your arguments. For example, in the case of gender, if you want to count the abuses, atrocities happening in the field, quantitative is important. But the nature of, if you want to understand the nature and process of the phenomena, if you want to understand the nature and process of the phenomena, and you are asking why question, why it is happened, how it has happened, why and how, the questions particularly focusing on why and how. For answering that, you may have to use qualitative questionnaire or tool. For example, in case of gender, how the atrocities has generated within a family and why it has generated. If you want to address that, you should, for example, a women who have gone through the atrocity would not simply answer to you within a half an hour questionnaire. You may need hours and hours behind her to get some feedback and open feedback. So that is the relevance of such issues having personal feelings or subjective feelings. Quantitative things are important. Fine.
Okay, Rajesh, thank you. Uh, uh, One specific question that is also related to gender. For example, suppose we want to measure empowerment. Sometimes we can see that many people are using indexes and questions. I mean, quantitative approach of measuring empowerment. So, how far can you comment on that?
In that case, no, if you, how you see that, that is important. If you see the environment, define the environment in terms of increase in income or their ability to spend income in their own decision, all those kind of things, that simple responses may be sufficient. But if you ask a basic question, how do you perceive empowerment to them? The concept of empowerment itself, no, how the perception about empowerment, if you want to understand that, that is entirely different. You can't understand. You, for example, for instance, many of the women in the households think that it is they are liable to get subjected to the domination of their husbands. So they don't think even that they have the right to respond. In such cases, I think you have to, first of all, you have to create a reflective consciousness among them to talk even about empowerment. In such cases, qualitative data, qualitative methods are important, like continuous discourses, talks, interviews. It's not even interviews, it's maybe a kind of discourses.
Thank you very much. Now there is a not a question from there is a request from students saying that they need follow-up lectures of introductory qualitative research. I hope we can arrange those lectures in the period. Session. I mean, now I invite Rija PS of Dr. Rija PS, Assistant Professor, DCM College, Kottayam. Are you there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes,
Rija.
Anybody has the live
Department of
response?
Sociology.
Justin, anybody has the live response?
Um, okay. Anybody? Any other question? You can just unmute your mic and only one question. If anyone wants to ask any question, you can unmute your mic and ask.
Hello,
Okay.
this is Dr. Goswami from Gujarat. Sir, which one is preferable, qualitative or quantitative research, sir?
Told you, no, it's depend upon your objective of the research. I don't have a one single word answer for that. What is the objective of your research, and what is the epistemology of the theoretical frame of your research? That's also important.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Now I invite Dr. Rija PS, Assistant Professor of Sociology, DCM College, Kottayam, for delivering vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, one and all present here. It is great privilege to me extend vote of thanks for this webinar. First of all, I thank the principals of both PCM and St. Paul's College for giving a great opportunity for us for organizing such a wonderful seminar. Next, I extend the vote of thanks to our distinguished resource person who is greatly while going through this class, I understood he's a great researcher. How he brilliantly answered all the queries posed by our all the our participants, and how he had in-depth knowledge in the various realms of the qualitative research. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us, for giving a wonderful session to a lot of people. I think a lot of people from the outside Kerala have joined this webinar. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. And I extend a grateful and sincere thanks to my colleague, Dr. Alfonso Kurian, HOD of BCM College, and Justin George, HOD of St. Paul's College, for organizing such a wonderful webinar for the academic community. Thank you all. And I also thank all the participants who had put forward brilliant question. And sir, if you go through the chat box, you can really realize how they are attentive in these sessions. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
One more thing, feedback form is there in the link for the feedback form is there in the chat box. You can fill it and you can receive certificate. Thank you all. Thank you all. The webinar is concluded.
Thank you.